A very good morning and a warm welcome to all delegates joining us today on this online platform for a special set of series known as 12 Months Safety Challenge Knowledge Webinar Series. Since today we are on the last leg of this Safety Challenge webinar series, which was initiated from January 2020, where we picked up safety topics for each month. Let me just mention the topics so that you can check in case if missed any topics starting from January. The topics include fire and life safety, electrical safety, occupational safety, driving safety, safe evacuation and egress, workplace safety, fire prevention, safety compliance, safety signage and visuals, emergency plan and first response, fire safety codes and standards. In case you have missed any of these safety webinar topics, you can still view them along with your entire team of safety professionals by subscribing to our YouTube channel, and all webinars will be available to you. Kindly click on link available in chat box to subscribe now. 12-month safety challenge knowledge webinar series has been a purely knowledge sharing series. We at East Corp Group are in the domain of fire safety security. Our topic for today's webinar is safety audit, a technique to save lives and property. We hope this will be a valuable and knowledge sharing series for all delegates present today. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Afrin. Very good morning, everyone. It's really exciting morning again to see you all on a monthly webinar series that we just talked about it. And today, it's a D-Day. It's the last day of our this webinar series that we have kick-started a month back before COVID, before the webinar jam that industry has started picking up. So we first of all thank you very much for all your response, overwhelming response that we have got from all the corners, not only within the country, even outside country, um, because the entire purpose behind this what was is to share the knowledge among us the industry and professionals, and plug those gaps in the minds in terms of fire safety. And these are the topics which are quite relevant, uh, very common at the same time, but there is always a need to refresh some of the things that uh, are required, and we usually don't get time to refresh those. And I think um, unfortunately, fortunately, COVID has given that moment of refreshing those knowledge information, and get those experiences out of this webinar series. So I think um, the selection of the topic that we have chosen is was quite relevant. We got a lot of good feedback and compliment from the industry. Uh, but of course, today we are going to cover a very important topic on safety audit and assessment, or a risk assessment, which is going to be the need of the hour today. Looking at a lot of incidences happening in and around in all the facilities that you see around in the media that you read about, this is the need of the hour. At the same time, there are a lot of myth people still carry about what is this safety audit. So we'll touch upon this particular topic, but of course, our effort will still be on. We will continue our efforts to reach out to the industry and masses in sharing our experiences and knowledge in some way or the other. Of course, this series is going to end today, but some series is going to be launched. We will keep talking to you. You can keep talking to us, and that's how we are going to be with you for all 365 days that you can see around. So that's all the important announcement that I wanted to talk about here before we begin. So with this note, let's start the session, but then let me just start the session by asking one question, which is going to be a relevant question for some of you, or most of you, and that's how we are going to start. So the question here is, according to you, what do you mean by audit? Is it a thorough inspection, or is it a detailed survey, or is it a systematic review, or is it a risk assessment? So let's pick up the mind. Very simple question to ask for, and I would like to pick up your mind so that we are on one page. So, very, very fundamental question I'm asking. What do you mean by audit? What it gives you a triggering moment, or what you consider when you use this term in your facility? Yeah. So, inspection, survey, review, assessment. What is it that we talked about? Let's have 5 more seconds so that we can uh, conclude this answer. Still, people are trying to figure out, so do not have any confusion. Hit the button that you think that is right for you. Yeah. Okay. Good. So I'm going to end the poll here, and I'm glad that 82% felt is the correct answer. Is a systematic review of either a process or a procedure or a system that is going to be available with you. So this is a very, very fundamental um, myth people still carry. There are a lot of practitioners in the industry, they still consider inspection is being interchangeably used as audit. Even survey is being interchangeably used as audit, and so as risk assessment. And still there are 18% people felt that the similar way that assessment or risk assessment is meant by audit. No. So let's recap fundamentally and get clarity on what is this term that we use often, and specifically for a safety professional, this is a very, very important understanding that people need to have when they use this term in the industry. So audit is basically a very, very uh, elaborate and at the same time exhaustive exercise. It is something that uh, mostly people always relate to the financial risk. Okay, even though safety audit, there are many corporates, big corporates, they use safety audit is meant for their financial risk as such, like your accounts, your operations as such. So, but then when you check that financial status to know what is the gap there, it is essentially the spirit is the same. You are identifying the what is the risk element, whether in the form of compliance, whether in the form of any risk that inherent available in the system or a process or operations. That's what you are trying to get. Verify the facts, evaluate the facts based on the information that you gather, and that is what it means as an audit. So it is something kind of a systematic review or a process of validation of data that you pick up, evaluating the data to certain audit criteria or a benchmarking or an objective that you set about. So when you evaluate that with a certain criteria and come up with certain index or certain kind of a gap that can be quantified or that can be qualitatively assessed, is nothing but an audit. However, inspection or a survey, it is something to related to specific outcome. Maybe you are trying to do some testing function, or you are trying to evaluate a very, very specific portion of your system or component, or an ongoing monitoring that you do, which is going to be part of your operations, is an inspection. However, audit can always include some of the inspection, but you cannot irreversibly use and term inspection as an audit. There could be some of the inspection that is necessarily and part of your audit process, but inspection for that matter, it is very, very specific. It is very, very minimal in terms of activity that you do, or activity do that you do in terms of monitoring of your system or operations. Visa wise, if you look at the third component, assessment, is something very, very elaborate, very, very comprehensive. It includes your compliance, it includes your risk, and it includes your recommendation plan, it includes your gap analysis. So it includes everything that matters to you to identify what is where you stand and what's the way forward. So usually when the safety professional use the term risk assessment is something that like this. So you are identifying what is your hazard, whether it is the hazard, what is the frequency of that risk that is going to be available with you, what is your mitigation plan that is available with you, how effective that plan that are you right now in practice. So it is nothing but a reflection of your theory in practice is what is the assessment. Maybe there is a process defined in the organization that every 6 months people have to do mock drill, evacuation mock drill. So it is already part of the manual, safety manual. It has been regularly taught that you are supposed to do every 6 month mock drill, and to some extent it is happening. But when you do assessment or when you do audit for that matter, you are going to validate the data. Means how we are going to validate? You are going to ask the records. You're not going to believe on the person's statement or a safety officer statement that yes, we are every 6 months we are doing mock drill, and that is what our process or system or SOP that we follow. So auditor is going to take the note and he's going to go to the next question. No, that's not audit. That's an interview that you're taking, but the information that you're going to pick up must be filtered, must be evaluated, must be validated with certain evidences. So how you are going to pick up the evidence? You are going to ask the records. What's your training record? How frequently it is? How many people attended it? What's the evacuation time that it took? What are the obstacles that had happened? What is the gap that you identified? Who was the trainer, internal, external? Was it announced mock drill or was it unannounced mock drill? Was it the scenario taken as a fire, or you have taken scenario as a gas leakage, or maybe flood, or maybe earthquake? Because every process is different. So as people, when they do mock drill, will have the experience different. Accordingly, your record should capture all these evidences, and that's how assessment means. Many people are following certain things in the life. However, they do not have the clear visibility. What is this? Because the moment you do assessment, in that process, you will know what are the gaps. And that's the whole intent of risk assessment or audit. Otherwise, if the guy sitting there in the organization knows mock drill that they have been doing, and if the audit report is also going to talk about it that yes, the organization is doing mock drill every 6 months, what is the new that organization is going to get about out of this audit, so-called audit? And that's the reason I keep meeting a lot of people in the industry, and of course I would say that hardly less than one single digit people are following the audits in the industry, specifically fire and safety audit in the industry, because uh, I'll talk about the motivation about it. But even though whosoever they do the practicing of conducting a third party audit, external audit I'm talking about, they do not have a, a healthy experience out of this whole exercise. Reason being is that there are certain auditors who are only picking up the information, and that's how client says that whatever information I have given him, it is coming back to me. There is nothing new that I'm going to get. So if there is no value addition, if there is no assessment, there's no evidences that is going to capture and come up with a gap analysis, that what I mentioned about the simple example giving these mock drill, audit has no meaning, audit has no purpose. Yeah. So it is very, very important fundamentally, if you are an end user inviting a competent person to do the audit, you should set your expectation right. You should select the competent person so that you get a value out of this. At the same time, if you're an auditor, make sure that you do a right justice for the job of adding value to the entire process, getting to the bottom of the every situation or every process, every procedures, and see that what is theory and what is practice. Let me just give a quick introduction for some of the new people that are joined today. My name is Hemant Khadse. I am a founder of East Corp Group. 27 years learning history into safety domain. I worked with various companies, India and abroad, till 2013. Started this company in 2013, and that's how we are now on this platform, building a team, building portfolio, and working with many users in India and outside India. When I started my career, I had no clue about fire safety, but that's how it became my profession to passion, and that's how this concept of webinar that we have started is just coming out of passion, nothing about any commercial acumen as such. I love doing training programs, but then that's what the passion means. We are always believe that whatever information, knowledge, experience you carry must be transferred to the industry, and then only things can go, things can work, and your society gets built up, your nation gets built up. So we do a lot of consulting, not even consulting, the mentoring, I would say, program with a lot of users, specifically in upgrading the safety culture in the organization as such. So that's what our mission, and I'm out for a mission. The mission is become more clearer, more stronger as we are doing uh, such kind of webinar, such kind of interface with the customer, and definitely we are quite clear that we will, you know, achieve what we have set out for setting up this organization in 2013, creating the better place to live and work. So we have three companies in our group, specifically focusing on fire and life safety, environment, health safety, and security system. We do a lot of advisory services, consulting, audit, training programs. So visit our website to know more about it. I don't want to talk more here in this forum. I would use more time to talk about the topic of the today. And then of course information is available. The link will be shared in the chat option, so whatever information you want to know about us, it's available. And reach out to Afrin. Our website is there. You can put your feedback, comments, question, queries, and we'll definitely get back to you with the answer. So that's okay introduction, because sometimes people need to know what's the background, because in this webinar world a lot of surprises do come. So it's important that we need to know each other and from where we are coming from. So when we look at the audit, coming back to the topic, the motivation, the real motivation is coming from compliance. Most of the organization are actually conducting the safety audit. I'm using the safety term just for simplicity purpose, but it can be related to your environment, health safety. It can be your fire and life safety. It can be your electrical. As such, in terms of anything that affects to the life and property, your operations, we are talking about safety as such here. So I will be repeating use the safety audit, but you can always relate to any of the term that you see which is relevant for your industry. Yeah. So compliance is the major and most driving factor, I would say, in the industry, which is making people aware, or making people to do come forward and do conduct the third party, specifically internal, not third party, external audit, not internal audit, in the because of the compliance issue. And compliance is a fear factor because it is a need, uh, because if you don't comply that, there is something penalty which is coming to you, or there is some loss that you see out of this whole process. So most of the industries, unfortunately, in India are conducting the audits just to comply. It's a bitter truth, but that's how it is. There is a certain section in the industry also understand, and specifically when they become old. When I mean they become old, that means the plant becomes old, the facility becomes old, a lot of alteration, expansion, moderation happens, and then there is some person or some department always want to know where I stand. They are confused. They need to know where I'm standing in terms of risk, in terms of hazard, in terms of operation, in terms of procedures. That's what the birth takes place for audit, for those people to know where they stand, current state, gap analysis. But very few section, and only when they become old. There is a third section which is again a, it's like a pyramid, I would say. Compliance is basically on the bottom of the pyramid. Current state is in the middle of the pyramid, and improvement is in the top of the pyramid. Improvement is what is the real purpose of many organizations, and specifically large organizations, and specifically organizations which are communicating with the outside world in the form of exporting business. Because there is a compliances again coming from top, but at the same time there is a best practices also going to be inculcated in their culture, and that's how the birth takes place in those organizations. How can I improve? What is a better way to improve my systems? And that's how they invite the external auditors, understand where they stand, what's the way forward, and how can they make the things better in that many manner. So if you look at most of the industry, they fit into either of these three bracket. There could be many reasons apart from this, I'm not saying that, but if you majority industry, if you classify, they will be either fitting into one of the slot here. And as you see, when your objective of conducting an audit is just compliance, do you think that will you look at anything more than compliance? I doubt. Because your spirit of getting that audit is just to file and transfer it and get a thappa on the report, and you are complied, right? So there is no serious look or thought given as an outcome of the exercise that you do or deploy or you put an expense on, because your motive is just a compliance. I'm not saying that it's bad idea. I'm not saying that you should not do it. I'm saying that more stringent you follow in the form of compliance, better the organization would be. But today, unfortunately, there is no enforcement internally within the organization in the form of compliances, nor outside the world. You have a lot of acts, rules, conditions, standards available to follow, and those are statutory, those are mandatory in the form of compliances. But where we are lacking in the form of enforcement. When the enforcement is weak, compliance becomes what? A paperwork. It just become a ritual. And if you are doing an audit just to comply, and when there is no enforcement within or outside, then probably that document is just a paper. It's not a serious thought. It's not an initiative. It's not a driving force. It's just a file. That's all. Visa wise, when your motivation is identifying the gaps to know where you stand, and then identifying the ways and means to move forward, definitely there is some focus given, and I'm sure some people out of that basket will come forward, invest on coming forward, because I'm sure they need a change, and change is always resistance, right? It's a natural law. It's not easy in the organization to change for anything. And when you know that your current state is in probably not in a good state, you have to change, or it needs change. It needs a lot of resistance, it needs a lot of acceptance within the people. So it's tough for many people, or many specifically departmental people who conduct and initiate this audit. they have a lot of restriction in implementing that plan. And they, if they fail, there is a fear factor, because if the audit has been done and there are 50 NCs have come or a recommendation have come, and out of 50 if you don't do even 5, the blame will come to them or their department, that what the hell you have done the audit for. So there is again a fear factor in why should I do it, because there is no clarity. But yes, there is certain section, they are crystal clear. They have always realized that improvement is my journey, is a cycle. I cannot just stop it in between. Even though my plant is 5-year old or 10-year old, I have to improve my practices, because my operations is going to improve, my product is going to improve, my people are going to be changing, my environment is going to be changing. So there is always a need, not just a want, that I must look at around and get a fresh look in understanding where I stand in terms of risk, hazard, and that's how many people, many organizations, especially the large organization, global practices, they know exactly how to do, why to do, and they are able to achieve a lot of best practices just because they are doing the audit. Okay, I want to give a very crystal clarity here. That's the reason I gave a little more focus on this particular information, because fundamentally, if you are clear, then it's easy. Then you can actually conduct and identify the right competent sources and able to achieve this thing. But if your purpose itself is not clear, then probably your investment, doesn't matter whether it's thousand or lakh, is still a question mark. Yeah. If you have any questions in between, please put it in chat option or Q&A option. I will be able to answer it during or after. No worries. We have time till 12:30, and we should be able to finish it up before that. Yeah, good. So, what are the types of technical audits? I don't want to go theory. I want to go more practice. But fundamentally, also you should know, if you are an organizer within your organization, what is the type of audit involved, what the people are actually doing. So there are three type of audits. One is basically your strategic audit, where you expect compliance to be checked or verified. So it is mostly related to your outcome of strategic initiatives, which is coming from compliances. And compliances is not something, the word that we should be away from. Compliances depends on the size of the company, scale of the company, operation of the company could vary. They will not limit to the only local and state laws and bylaws. They will go to the international best practices, and that's their compliances, right? So for that matter, just to give you, OSHA's is a compliance, right? But if OSHA's has been followed, it becomes their compliance. So whatever it is a requirement of OSHA, they need to follow that, and that's how the verification need to be done. And that's what when they do an audit, it is a strategic uh, audit that they are doing it. So it's a verification, but it is mostly coming out of compliances. There's a second thought, which is tactical, which is where we are validating what your system, equipment, operation, sorry, not operation, the process. And that's how I wanted to give you clarity here, that most of the people feel audit is only for brownfield projects. That means the project or a facility which is pretty old, then only the need of audit comes in. It's not the fact. If you are doing a tactical audit, you can actually get your audit done right from beginning, right from planning stage, when your design starts. When you are deploying the designs, is the design adequate or inadequate? Is the design meeting the benchmarking requirement or criteria that organization is looking at? So in phases during your planning, installation, and uh, till operation stage, you still can do intermittent audits, and that's how it is tactical audit, because gaps also need to know in the beginning. So there are lot of big facilities you can see around where they invite and they involve a lot of professionals as a third party professionals, only and only looking at the gaps during planning stage, during design stage. Because if they make mistakes, if in planning stage and they execute it, rectification during operation and maintenance would be a costly affair. So rather they invest little bit on doing tactical audits at the planning stage, recorrect whatever is needed, and make sure that they are on it. We are involved in many, just for example I'm sharing you, we are involved in a lot of hospitality project where customers, developer, end user, they want us to look at what actually the even other designer is doing it all about. Because maybe the other designer that is on board, he may not be the specialist or she may not be the specialist, or the organization may not be the specialist in fire and life safety. So there is a need for someone to look at that aspect and plug those gaps in that design stage itself. So this is what is technical tactical audit. And third one, which is very common, which is operational audit, which is to identify how efficient my system is, how efficient my processes, procedures are, and or maybe products for that matter, or equipment for that matter. And you do that uh, complete evaluation and know where you stand and the gap involved in terms of those operational risk as such. So this is what technically three type of audit are involved. External audit is again a very very common practice. Internal audit is not that common except the occupational safety, which is again coming from OSHA's. But I am of opinion that, like what exactly you monitor your occupational safety, because it is a driving force coming in from OSHA's standard, it is ideal for every end users to invest on creating that resource internally, so that it becomes a continuous journey of looking at the things around periodically. Not that you have to wait for after 2 years somebody to come and investigate and get a surprise, and you lose that 2 year of time of efficiency or improvement. Rather invest an internal resource, make him compatible, make her compatible, to see that your your looking at the systems or process becomes your ongoing journey. So you have a variant or options available to look at it, whether it's internal or external. External has some advantage, internal some has advantage, so as pros and cons for both of them. Yeah, but as an organization you have to see what is best for you, what is an interest for you. I'm not here to promote either of thing. You need to have balance. You still have to invest on internal audit, at the same time you need to have intermediate external audit also for whatever system that you have. Because if you just have internal audits only, although you have a capable resources available to do it, but then there is always somebody outside in the industry can give you a good new insight, look at the benchmarking in the industry, and put up some new ideas to improve your systems, process, resources. Yeah, so have that balance correctly and look at it. Now where people make mistakes in just this not having clarity. I get a lot of questions from industry. That's reason I put this slide here, because some people will say that I am not coming into the high rise, but I'm a school. Somebody will say I'm a library, maybe again I'm not in high rise building, so why should I do audit? So there are a lot of misconceptions people carry and then come up with an excuse. Should I invest on audit or should I not invest on audit? Always there is a inclination for people, because it's an expense involved. It's a investment involved, people want to skip, not to have audit, taking the basis of compliances. But all I'm saying then the first slide is that when you look at compliances, then definitely 70% of the crowd will go down. Because the compliance, they said, if there is no enforcement, why should I invest on compliance? Simple. Yeah, because they look at the business interest than the people interest. But then ideally, you need to really compartment yourself based on your risk appetite. Whether even though I'm coming, no, I'm not coming in the radar of compliances, but my facility needs an audit, needs internal plus external audit, because I carry a lot of risk and hazards. There are a lot of processes and operations involved where constantly people have to be upgraded in the form of improvements. Unless until I get those insights, I might not improve. So, what is that instinct in the organization? I must have an audit. There are occupancy where there is no uh, vitality that they understand. They understand there is the importance of audit, but why should we do it every year? Why should we do it every 2 years? So I should have an audit. That's what they come up with an idea. And in that case, when they have that mindset of this organization or this facility should have an audit, they never, or they will have less frequency of conducting it. Maybe once in lifetime they'll do, and that's about it. There are certain facilities where they will identify, they'll come up say that no, I think this particular operation itself is risky. Probably it needs an audit. We could have done audit, or this facility could have been audited before. So it's an optional. And when there is an option, people will choose minimum and what is mandatory, and they'll skip. And there are many occupancies where they will take the support of either a risk or a compliance. They say that in last 20 years nothing happened in my facility, which is a very common excuse that I get or I hear. Why should I invest on audit? They have very solid feeling belief. Last 20 years nothing happened. Why should I audit? So they'll say I don't have to invest on audit. So this is the psychology of not only people, the organization. So you need to see where you stand. You need to see where you fit in based on your risk appetite. And risk appetite only and only when you know, when you do risk assessment. Am I right? If you don't do risk assessment, how will you know what is the risk involved? So it's like a chicken egg. Those people who believe that in last 20 years nothing happened, and if they invest on a risk assessment, and if there is a serious auditor or if it is a competent auditor involved, I'm sure he or she can come up with a right metrics to them and give them a justification. Sir, although in last 20 years this facility didn't have an occurrence of an accident, but there could be a lot of near misses you never have reported, and those near misses can get converted into an accident at any day without alarming you. And I'm sure one day it will just blow up, and then they say that, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, so this is the irony of the people. So audit is nothing but, very clearly, very briefly, two stages, two sides of the coin. One is collection of data, information, um, documents, process, resources. It's all about collection. The more you collect the data in the form of evidences, higher the degree of chances of evaluating the data, which is the second side. So both side need to be strategically balanced when you do audit. At many instances, auditor is able to pick up a lot of data, but they are not able to filtrate, evaluate the data correctly in the eyes of risk, in the eyes of hazard. There are a lot of photographs, but one photograph can tell you 5 images or 5 stories. Which is the most strong one? That is the skill of an auditor. So, as an end user, when you invest on audit, you need to be open on about both the side. You should be able to give as much as data as possible out of the evidences, and it can be in the form of interviews, surveys, inspection, testing, uh, demo, desktop review, simulation. So there are multiple ways of collecting the data. I will not get into it right now because that's different session altogether. And when you have those enough data, evaluate data in the taking the benchmark or criteria of audit, and then evaluate it, and then you know exactly where you stand. Most of the cases when you evaluate the data, you don't know the benchmark. It's a question for even auditors. They don't know where to compare what. They don't know how where to relate those things for. And then again, it is an open ended, and probably you are able to miss out. You will miss out in a lot of cases. The data is coming to you, but you are not evaluating that data, and then you are not able to identify the risk correctly, and that could be the major risk in future. But it's an oversight that you don't look at it because you don't have that criteria in front of you in evaluating that particular data that is coming to you in the form of audit. Yeah. So this is what essentially, in a very very simple way, the process in world of audit. There are certain principles attached. Okay, so I'm just going to give you some theory here quickly, and then we'll come back to the case study, which is going to be interesting part. So hang on. Uh, what are the principles? There are many people who come and ask me, okay, can you do audit for our resident society? Again, he must have heard the society builder because there is a confusion in the mind if the society builder is there for a resident society, which is probably high-rise society, and then uh, compliance has been told to him that as a bearer of the society, you have to conduct a third-party audit on fire. Otherwise, you will go behind bar if there is anything goes wrong. So in that fear factor, he shops around in the industry and see that can I get an auditor? It's a fact. I'm just sharing with you. But that society or that complex do not have any systems, not even extinguishers. Now tell me, what are you going to do all about? What audit are you expecting for that particular society if you don't have a system? So it is very, very important for a facility owners to have a healthy operational live systems to do the audit for. You should have a policy, you should have a procedures, you should have operations, you should have an infrastructure, you should have resources, you should have a structure to demonstrate, and then only that audit has a meaning to do it. If you do not have those kind of infrastructure available in your place and you are still surviving for god grace, you expect audit, there's nothing that audit can be done. Even though commercially the auditor will do the audit, but to me this is not an audit, I decline. Because unless until you have a healthy systems, working systems, there is no point in looking at data, because you don't have data, you are not able to collect any data, and what evaluation that can be done. Check each element, whether it's a quantity risk or a quality risk. look at the entire facility in a 360 view. Don't look at, there are many people who are coming to me, and because see, when I'm sharing these examples, you will also relate to some of the example with you. Some people say that, okay, you ignore this. Okay, we don't have this. You only look at this. But is that a right spirit? Better you build a system and then do audit. They say we don't have hydrant sprinkler system, but you have extinguishers and do the audit. So there are many surprises that you see in the industry if your elements as a whole are not in place, then you can't just have only one or two elements to be audited and then do your job. You need to see entire facility as a facility, and then only you are going to see what is the risk involved in terms of all the processes that they have in terms of quality and quantity both. You can't say that my this plant do not have access, so you ignore this plant, you only do this. Or maybe there is a facility where you only do common areas and you ignore the inside offices. Selective base. But the hazard may be from inside, not from common hazard. So you need to see that each element have to be included as a part of audit. Then only it becomes a fulfillment of the exercise. Check all the samples. Of course, you can't take every sample into consideration because it's a time-bound activity. And in audit specifically, you need to have a random check. But unless until you pick up the component of those system parameters, operations, resources, you'll not be able to judge in a holistic way. You need to interface with the people. You need to ask questions. You need to get interviews. You need to ask for a document. Unless until that communication happens, audit also is not going to be fulfilled. Right from top to bottom. Maybe you need to speak to a welder even if you have to validate if the hot work permit process has been followed or not, if the PPE appliances has been followed or not. At the same time, you have to go to supervisor, you have to go to the plant manager, you have to go to the maintenance manager, and maybe you have to go to the top CEO of the company so that you know what is the safety objectives and how it has been percolated in the industry right from top to bottom. So you need to communicate, have interviews, have documentation evidence, and then only you can probably this thing. So there are many organizations who have that resistance that you're not allowed to go there or you're not able to communicate there. You can't ask them. In that process, again, it is a compromised. You are identifying deficiency of the systems, not a deficiency of the person. Very important statement. Many people, when they do audit, they always shy away because they consider that I'm a safety head. The blame will come to me as an individual. So better not to have an audit. Or otherwise get an auditor who will be pally with him or her so that your green points will come back to him so that he get a care and he's get an increment that he has a fantastic safety practices and systems. The spirit of the audit is identifying the deficiency of the system, not of the people. System works, people don't. So when you clarify that objective in the opening meeting itself, people are more open to share with you the information, give their data, share the practices, what structure they have, and then that's how the audit gets this thing. And then you have to address the deficiencies, not the people. Again, you cannot blame people that okay, you're not following hot work permit. Say your system is there or system is not there. If it is there, maybe you are not able to, you do not have a system of communicating that hot work permit system to the people involved or concerned. So identify the deficiency address that deficiency correctly, technically, because then only end user also is going to take that positively, constructively. Otherwise, it's a blame game. And I have a lot of bitter experiences where report was rejected because they consider that as a personal criticism, and they always have an argument to justify that this remark is not correct. You need to take it back. They take it very personally, emotionally. So it's a maturity issue, but you have to address it correctly, technically. So my message to both the societies here, whether you're an end user at receiving end, make sure that these principles are attached to you. If you're an auditor, make sure that you understand what you're talking about. Audit is, I'm not going to read all the content here, but you can glance through it. But it has a lot of byproducts. It can uncover the organization in a very true sense. But provided your audit is done in a full spirit with the principle that I discussed about, it gives you a lot of analysis in terms of responsibility matrix, in terms of awareness level, in terms of leadership quality, in terms of monitoring practices, in terms of equipment accessibility, maintenance practices, your policy is there or not. Your policy is there, but it's not communicated. It's communicated to only certain section or entire section. What are your compliances gap? What are your exposures involved? What are the safety practices been followed? How organization is matured, or how organization is inadequate? What are your impact to the environment? How they are controlling? What are their administrative control? What are their engineering controls? What are their preparedness levels? So every aspect will get covered when you conduct an audit. There are many people who have again belief whether audit is been done with an open mind and blank sheet, or should be with a checklist. So there are pros and cons. I take it the other way. Uh, as long as you have clarity in doing what are doing, as long as you know your audit criteria, both of them are on one page, then probably open mind risk assessment would be the right choice. But neither the customer knows what criteria he has to follow, nor auditor has a clarity how to evaluate it, rather than better to follow a simplest method of checklist based. So I'm not going to advocate any of the model. It all depends on competency and maturity of the organization's, scale of the organization, scope of the audit that you do. How can you make it work? Have a ready system, very very simple, that I mentioned to you. Keep documentation records accessible, available. Do not have any hesitation that if I show this, NC will come to you. No, let the NC come, because NC is going to come to you to improve. Understand the spirit of the audit. It is not a blame game. Understand the standard and criteria that are you going to follow. Benchmarking, are you are able to compete the global world, and that's how your audit is for. If you have that spirit that I'm going to be competing the global world and practices, then you have to be a globally competent person or organization. Then you have to adapt the global practices. Simple. And very important that when you invest on those third party auditors, have a right selection criteria. You can't be a just based on L1 criteria you buy a product and get a thorough verification of those competencies of the people and agency that you are going to engage. Because as I mentioned to you, this is a very serious job. There are many people, when there is a purchase entity involved in the organization specifically, and then definitely it is not an investment, it is an expense in the eyes of the purchase, right? Always and always. And when they look at this as an expense, not as an investment, they'll always look for cheapest. And there are freebies also, and there are premium also. So you have to see what is available. I'm not saying that premium is the best one in the industry. You have to see your cost and benefit. how much are you investing and how much value are you going to get it. If you're expecting a system integrator of a AMC contractor to do the free audit because he is assuming that a contract will come to me for a maintenance contractor and this is my free audit, I have no comment, because the value expectation itself is not matching. So you have to hire right people. You have to select the right competencies, because ultimately this is a value addition exercise. You are expecting a lot of new insights in the organization to improve your practices in the global standard. Otherwise, whatever information is available to you, or maybe last year audit report, if you give it to the auditor and say that okay, copy paste and that job is done, give it to me, this is money and that's all. It's a transaction. It's not audit. It's just a transaction. Okay. So again, lastly, focus on system and not on the people. Okay. So audit is not something that blame will come to you, where you need to be answerable for. No, it's a system gap, and system in the organization can be always unified. Let me just share you case study what I have done. This is my live case study for a building in Mumbai, and we did a audit of this 40-year-old commercial building where they didn't have a compliances. They have just very old kind of a one page, two page um, paper from the authority, and that was their compliance. So when we were hired on this particular facility as an auditor on board 2.5 years back, we had given a very serious thought that what is this facility you want to be build about. Although you have a lot of constraint in terms of civil, because being a old facility, but in terms of practices there is no limitation. So what is the benchmarking level that you need to have? Are you looking at compliances or beyond compliances? So we gave clarity to the society barriers, and fortunately they were very open. They were very futuristic, and they were all uh, on one page. And that's the advantage we got. And we started this particular assignment, and we looked at all aspect. We completely scanned the entire facility, not in terms of hardware but in terms of their mindset. They had very deficient fire protection systems, which was just for namesake, a 10-15 year old system. Compliances were there as the basic compliances, but nothing beyond compliances, because the system itself was deficient. And we changed the entire game of the fire protection systems. We had the equipment which is in line with the codes and standards as a best practices. They were installed with the best practices, with a lot of um, construction and installation codes and standard practices. We changed the entire life safety system as a backbone of system. Very deficient, outdated, switched off fire alarm panel protecting that facility, or looking at that facility. I would not say protecting that facility. It was just sitting there as a dead man. And we changed the entire uh, I mean, basically as an auditor we gave them a solutions. We didn't install, we didn't supply anything. It was just an facilitation that we did, but we got the work done from the integrator in line with the best practices. So when I'm showcasing this, don't relate to me as an integrator here. We were auditor in the beginning, and when we presented that data, explain them a lot of gap analysis, give them a justification, evidence, cost benefit cycle, and then we got a clearance to implement those gaps on a priority basis in phase manner. We did complete system design engineering, uh, analysis, and then they selected an integrator on board. They asked us to check all the quality standards during the construction, till the commissioning, till the handing over stage, and that's how it is the last stage where system was handed over to them, and now it is an operational. So entire end-to-end handholding we did with them, and it was a super, very very enriching experience for us, because they had very clear thought that we want to make this facility a better facility, a safe facility for people to come and work. We added the talkback facility, which was not earlier there. Entire system was completely changed, not only in the compliances mode but in the operation mode, that people are able to see it, operate it, and understand it on a day-to-day basis. The backbone of fire protection system, that is fire pump, was not meeting the requirement, or it was not in line with the standards. We changed the entire thing, uh, ensured that the system is in automatic mode, so that in case any fire occurs, the system will take on auto mode condition, and it will suppress the fire or control the fire spread. The basement car parking didn't have enough coverage of sprinkler systems. We changed the entire design, installations, make sure that the entire car park is smoke controlled, sprinkler protected, fire alarm coverage, extinguisher coverage, emergency lights, signages, everything was in place, which was not the case earlier. And it was purely an outcome of audit, understanding the risk assessment, understanding the gap analysis. Electric panel room didn't have any um, safety measures. We explained them that what is the risk involved. The room was given with adequate fire protection coverage, detection coverage, rubber mat, exit signages, extinguishers. So many things that we ensured what is required uh, for that particular area, so that it can not have any kind of an accident. But if it is so, there is a system to manage it. So as a life safety system, many things need to be covered. This is just a glimpse of it. Okay, I can talk and talk on. In fact, there is a program that I'm going to talk about it for many of you to look at it as an extension. But life safety is the one that is a very very detailed subject, and people need to go length and breadth out of it. So when you look at the facility, you have to see that audit is going to capture all these inputs, whether the egress is enough or not, what's the occupancy, what's the arrangement of exits, what's the staircase that you have, what's the compartmentation that has, what's the refuge area, assembly area, what's the doorways, means door which is going to be in the as a means of exit or horizontal exit, what is the door movement, what's a fire lift, what's a passenger lift, what's a corridor pressurization or smoke ventilation system, what's the emergency light illumination that you have, what's a active and passive system that are available in the facility to protect and prepare. So there are a lot of factors that you need to consider while evaluating the data. But data has to be there. If you don't have data, then you have to create the data, and that's how the audit is going to be more meaningful and it is worth. Another example I want to share with you here as a very sorry, large facility, specifically IT offices, where you expect a long corridor. Yeah. So maybe there is a case that your travel distance between point A to C is going to meet the standard. Maybe at that time architect have complied it, say 45-meter, distance. But if the A and B itself is going to be more than 30-meter, it's a one-way directional travel. It's a something that is a risk that you need to check, because it could be considered as a dead end if there is a door at this point in time. Because I've seen a facility where they had a door and a server room right here, just at the end of A, point A. Now the query came in that this is complied. I mean, there's no objection in the form of strategy because that can be managed. But in terms of risk, when you do a risk assessment, this could be hazard because there could be people operating here. They might travel back to the point towards A thinking that is an exit, but it is not an exit and it's a dead end. And any distance which is going to be more than 15 meters for that particular occupancy is a dead end distance, which is not allowed. So it's a really catch 22 situation. Will you evaluate this as a dead end or not? So that is what your risk assessment is going to be answer for. You have to look at what are the possible cases, what is the risk involved, and accordingly then you have to see if the floor is going to be risky or the entire building is going to be highly hazardous. If the building is going to be highly hazardous, then better you do the risk assessment of the entire and then come up with the egress plan. If there are specific rooms as in and around to that point between A and B which are risky, you need to see that the distance can be shorter by getting a exit in between. So how do I reduce my distance so that it doesn't become a risk for the occupants to travel in case of emergency? Because there are intermediate rooms which are risky. The travel distance for the lower risk definitely will have no bearing as such. You can always pass it. So technically, if you look at it, I'll just wrap up. Time is short. In fact, I've exited. I didn't see it. It's 12:36. So if you don't mind, give me 5 minutes. I'll wind up this. Yeah. Is it okay? Yeah. Just give me a thumbs up in case you're okay with this, and then I can take it up. Yeah. Thank you. So this is what the travel distance from remote point to this point. But then if your distance is going to be that high and you have little moderate risk, then you have to ensure that the area is with detectors, area is with your visible signages, or area has been separated with your fire corridors. That means you are creating a barrier which is fire rated lobby or a corridor. You are trying to reduce the risk because then at least smoke is not going to enter here and people can come to the fire corridor, travel little higher distance which is within the travel distance, and then reach to a fire exit. Yeah. So that is how the risk assessment is all about. Or if there is nowhere that you can have because the building itself is hazardous or the area that you have is very large, then you need to have alternate means of egress, which is an alternate egress wherein you will have two exits technically for any occupants to leave the place from point A. That's how you need to come up with this, and this will be only and only possible when you do risk assessment. It is not complied because architecturally plan said that it is complied. Travel distance 45 meters met, but technically this is a dead end corridor. Likewise, there are remote exits, but those are not remote. Those are not 45-degree. If there are 45-degree distance apart, then only it is called a remote exit. They has to be distant apart because people when they are exiting it, they should not have any kind of hindrances or obstructions because maybe one of the exit is not safe. So in that case, how do you assess the risk? You need to see that even if they are close by or not 45-degree, you see that there's a fire separation created as an outcome of risk assessment and you are separating those exits. This is how you need to build a case. I'm just giving a sample so that you get a glimpse of it. There are many I can give you. Day is not going to be short for that. Uh, Rather, day is going to be short for that. Sorry to correct that. Another example, lastly, and then I can end. Electrical shafts. When specifically a facility which is a common facility, you can always see that wooden door is protected, and there is a label attached to that this is a fire door, which is not locked. So technically, the cable shaft is not even sealed. The door that you have doesn't have a 30-minute rating or 1 hour rating, and still landlord will going to use that this is a this is a fire door. So how do you do that? Risk assessment is going to tell you that this is the shaft to be sealed, the door had to be 1 hour rated, and that's how you're going to build the case and make that people aware what's a gap about in terms of code compliance. So in summary, if you invest on a right type of audit periodically, internally plus externally, you definitely can cover the risk in the form of compliances and risk management both. You understand your gap analysis, you understand how to, or what are the ways to improve. You, in nutshell, you are able to see that facility is prepared, protected, and prevented from all the hazards that you see around. So this is nothing but a technique to save lives and property, provided you invest rightly and support that initiative open with open mind and with a, clarity. So if you have that clarity, if you have that open mind, probably it can really safeguard your building to a great extent. So that's all about the topic. In case you are still interested, you can opt for this program that we have launched last week, which is going to be on 21st to 23rd of Jan. That's only meant for users, end users, safety professionals who want to become an internal FLS, fire and electricity auditor for their facility, because you might be doing the job since ages as a safety head or a safety executive or safety manager, but need a lot of clarity in the when you're responsible for the facility as the fire and life safety person. So we are going to train you guys, and this is a very very comprehensive, very detailed training model. I think it's a good opportunity to invest on it. It's a 3 days model. uh, there is a link there in the chat option. You can register it, reach out to Afrin, and that's available. And you can always save the date, you can plan and schedule so that it doesn't clash with this thing. So I thought it's a right opportunity to showcase and display this. So in case you are interested, do not hesitate, include your teammate, colleagues, friends, to go for this particular course. This is the first time in the India that we have launched this course, and it is going to be really worth investing. As an organization, we are always there to support you in case you have any queries, assistance required in the form of fire and life safety audit, environment health safety audit, or electrical and energy audit. We are the uh, advisors and do and help a lot of users in this particular segment. So feel free to reach out to us. Tomorrow again we are going to have another session, which is a weekly session that we have launched 26 July. So that's going to be 23rd session, which is going to be on fire safety security. So we are going to revisit what had happened in last uh, episodes, take the lessons, understand the codes and practices, understand the integrated concept about building safety systems. So a lot of information will come to you tomorrow when you join in at 11:30. So again, link is available to register in case you are not registered. This will be going to be 23rd, and then we are going to end on 25th uh, week, which is another 3 weeks ahead. So make sure that you are log in and you are available for this particular session tomorrow. 11:30 we are going to be starting this session. It's going to be 1.5 hour session, little more detailed. So this is our mission. I really thank you for joining and making this webinar series a really fruitful series. It was our sincere attempt to reach out to you and share whatever we know. But feel free to suggest anything that you want to do for you. Website has got all the provisions to add your suggestions and queries and questions, so we'll be able to get back to you. I really thank you for your time again, and look forward to see you tomorrow 11:30. Thank you so much.